Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome back to Streaming Media Connect 2025. I'm Steve Nathans Kelly, editor of Streaming Media Magazine and the chair of Streaming Media Connect. It's great to be back for this session, OS Wars, the new CTV playing field. It's going to be a great discussion. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. If you've been with us all week, you've heard many of these before, but the first person to correctly name the track and the artist of the music we were just hearing will win an Amazon gift card for $50 at the end of the session. We'll announce it then, and you must be present to win. So stick around because you're going to miss a great conversation if you don't. And chat in the chat as always. And then if you have questions for the panel toward the end of the session, we'll take Q&A from the audience. So please put your questions in the Q&A box. So if they go in the chat, they'll scroll away. And sessions from all 3 days of Stream Media Connect this week are already appearing on our YouTube channel. The link for that will be in the chat. And join us back here May 20th to 22nd for the next Streaming Media Connect. The call for speakers is open now. The last time I checked, it said February, but if you put your topic idea in there or just say you want to speak and what you want to speak on, if you want to join a panel and be part of all this, that'll be great. And the message will get to me and we'll be working on the content and the planning over the next couple of weeks. So please get your call for speakers responses in. Be great to hear from you. Without further ado, I would like to bring to the stage Mark Loughney, Senior Consultant, Hub Entertainment Research. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Steve. Thanks.
Good to see
I'm
you.
as excited as you are for this session. We've got a great panel. We have people representing various aspects of the business, so we expect that we'll get some robust conversation going.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mark Loughney. I am a senior consultant at Hub Entertainment Research. We do a lot of consumer surveys on how people use video and how people curate their video experiences. And what I'd like to do is, rather than spend a lot of time on me, let's have the panelists jump in and introduce themselves briefly. Let's start. I'm going to start in order of how you appeared on my screens earlier. Greg, why don't you give us a little intro to who you are?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Barnard. I'm leading content acquisitions for Vizio's owned and operated content service, Watchery Plus. If anybody has that question, Vizio was just acquired by Walmart. So I'm Vizio Walmart here today.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Jeff, do you want to jump in?
You're on mute, Jeff.
Alex, yep.
How you doing? My name is Jeff Clanagan, president of Hartbeat, which is Kevin Hart's production company. I oversee all his streaming efforts. We have our FAST channel, which is called LOL Network.
Thank you. Damian.
Hi, everybody. I'm Damian Pelliccione. My pronouns are they and he. I'm the CEO and one of the 4 fabulous co-founders of Revry, the world's largest LGBTQ FAST and AVOD service.
Great. Paige.
Hi, everyone. Paige Sherman, Director of Video Programming over at Shout Studios, which is a fun way of saying any of the day-to-day FAST operations will really fall under me. We've got about 14 now between Carol Burnett, Johnny Carson, Wild West TV, our flagship Shout TV channel, lots more and growing. So excited to be here today.
Great. Chris?
Hello, everyone. Got Chris Hock here. I'm from Whale TV. Whale TV is the leading independent connected TV operating system provider. We power more than 43 million active TVs around the globe, and I run monetization for the company.
Great. All right. Well, let's get into it then. For anyone who knows me, they would know that I've spent a big chunk of my career in ad sales and ad sales research. So knowing that about me, you wouldn't be surprised. The first thing I want to jump into is a question about monetization, ad formats. What do you all think are the opportunities provided by CTV for new advertising formats and opportunities for brands beyond endemic media and entertainment categories? We know when we turn on our TV, often what we see, one of the first ads, if we do see an ad, the low-hanging fruit has been premieres on, you might see for White Lotus or something like that, but beyond movies, beyond series, beyond streaming apps, what opportunities does the CTV environment provide for advertisers? Chris, you want to start? I see monetization up there, so maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, you know, it's the great thing about CTV is, you know, we get this combination of living in the TV world, having the big screen on the living room, but also, you know, it's more like digital. It's a connection right into the consumer. So it opens up a little bit more than linear TV does. So certainly we can get the video ads, the in-stream ads, the 15 seconds to 30 seconds, you know, what have you. You know, but one of the things that we're really proud of at Whale TV is some of our unique formats in and around the discovery of content. When you come into and you turn on your TV, for example, we have a beautiful masthead advertising that opportunity that you know is front and center on the page. You know, and this is a fantastic unit for driving obviously discovery of entertainment content and driving tune in and conversions for app installs and getting people to events and so forth. You know, and it's also kind of resonates with luxury brands and some categories that are really looking for a nice big splash with a big visual display in the living room.
Damian, we talked, I think, a little bit about this too when you and I were prepping for this. I think you have some ideas too about how this will work for advertisers and brands.
Yeah, look, we work with a ton of different advertisers, everyone from, you know, McDonald's to L'Oreal to Lexus to Procter and Gamble. And it's interesting because as a publisher in CTV, you know, we have kind of our earned opportunities with all the editorial teams from folks, you know, Vizio to Samsung to TCL. But then we also spend our own marketing dollars to evangelize, you know, original content or big studio titles that we're releasing on our FAST channels. And we buy some of that, you know, banner space essentially, which sometimes it drives and sometimes it doesn't, right? I don't think that there's an exact science or a playbook yet. You know, at the end of the day, FAST is all about getting to a certain KPI of watch time. And sometimes those banner ads will find that, you know, super viewer, as we like to call them, that'll watch past, you know, get to the point of like 6 to 8 minutes when they're watching an ad. Sometimes they don't, right? So there's still a lot of failed attempts and still a lot of ABC kind of testing. But I don't think anyone has it totally figured out yet, at least from the publishing side of things, but we're definitely getting a lot closer.
Yeah, and Paige, I think if I'm remembering correctly, we had a little bit of talk about collaboration on channel promotions, events, and so on that kind of, you know, connects to this idea of monetization.
Yeah, I mean, and I would love to piggyback off of that because I think there is something to be said for having those really wonderful placements. Anything that we can also do to kind of reduce the points of entry that it might take to actually get to a FAST channel that's embedded a few layers deep. So there are those really amazing opportunities where we can also collaborate, to your point, on some really exciting events. Let's say, okay, this whole month, for the entire month of February, every Saturday, we've got some wonderful spotlights for Johnny Carson TV for Black History Month. We've got custom tiles. We can give you dates, times, rundowns, anything like that. Feature it up on your home screen. Maybe there's opportunities within the EPG to have the channel featured up a bit higher. So it's just a lot easier to find. So maybe you have some folks who are already familiar with it that stumble upon it, but maybe you can also catch some new viewers as well who are now going to find their new favorite channel. So I love to take advantage of those opportunities anytime we can, because I think it kind of helps out on all different sides.
Yeah. Jeff, that sounds like that kind of would lead into some of what you guys are doing there, what Paige was just talking about.
Yes, I mean, for us, because we're a publisher, we're not the actual OEM. Our relationship with brands has really been around branded entertainment and using the CTV fast to kind of deliver the KPIs that the brands are looking for. So we've been very successful because a large part of our focus is actually producing original content. We do have library content, but we have a major focus on original content, and original content. We've been partnering with brands to do that, and that's been pretty successful for us.
Greg, that sounds like, yeah, you're ready to jump in there.
Yeah. So a couple things on monetization. One, what I want us to focus on in this chat as well is like what CTV is and how an OEM like where I work can really be a great partner to Damian, to Paige, to Jeff, where we're really doing two things. The two key things for me are data and product, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a CTV platform, we have a lot of data. We know what our users are doing. We know what they're watching. We know how long they're watching. We know when they're watching and when they change the channel, when they do all these things, right? We have an incredible amount of data that we can use. And if we're able to productize that opportunity and achieve two very important things, probably the two most important things in this industry are discovery of content and rediscovery of content, right? If we're able to do that effectively, seamlessly all the time, the monetization, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it becomes a lot more robust, and that's what makes us a sustainable and much bigger business. And that's why Jeff can lean in and do more original content. Paige can acquire Open Road like they did. All these wonderful things will then begin to balloon, right? When we're able to build a significant business out of this. Now, our interfaces allow us to target our audience, to target the needs and the wants of our users dynamically with various different endpoints for content where we count every eyeball, which is different than old cable days. And I always love to point that out. It was a great product that we had in the old cable days, but we have a lot of those great things in here, and we've enhanced them now. And our ability to create dynamic hubs, dynamic executions, dynamic shelves. If Jeff comes to me and says, we want to spotlight this, how do we do that? We want to spotlight this with Pepsi. How do we do that? We can create that, not on the fly. Give me a couple days, Jeff. But we can definitely do that in connection and working with our content partners who have all this great content. It's dynamic, it's interesting, and it can be targeted, and every eyeball can be counted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you guys within your environment, it's essentially a census of your user base, right?
Right. And as these footprints grow, I mean, on Vizio, and you'll see it on other OEMs as well, we're building dynamic executions, right? And to your monetization standpoint, overlays and sponsorships and QR codes, like all these wonderful things that have come up and will come up, our ability to address those things and productize them on our platform to monetize together is a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
That's our goal.
Yeah. And again, I think when we had our prep call, I threw out the word gatekeepers because I think it's actually it was in the session description, if I'm not mistaken. And we kind of didn't like that word, but let's put it out there anyway. Do we see any concerns of maybe some of the OS or OEMs being gatekeepers in this CTV environment? Or, what needs to be done to keep that open ecosystem? Chris, I think you had some thoughts about that in our first call.
Yeah, we are we're really not fans of the word gatekeeper. We have being an independent connected TV operating system. We see our role as really bringing people together, being super connectors. There are 400 different TV brands around the world. And not all of those have the opportunity or the resources to go out and build an operating system, to put together a biz dev team and go acquire content, to put together an ad stack and get advertisers on board. So we help fill a gap where we can provide some of these services. We can come with a full featured operating system, a content through our FAST services and our content partnerships, and ready for advertisers to start reaching audiences, and help brands, TV brands, really get more competitive in markets for their TV. So it's bringing the TV brands. We look at TV brands as partners. Content partners are definitely in our ecosystem, and so are advertisers. So more of a connector than I think a gatekeeper would be how we would describe it.
Mm-hmm. And Jeff, I think you had some thoughts also about cooperative agreements, or any ways that things can be facilitated.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, just kind of addressing the note about gatekeeper. I mean, when I think about gatekeepers, traditionally the Hollywood studios are gatekeepers because they're controlling what content gets made. The OEMs are not trying to control what content we're making. They're actually enabling us to be a partner and distributor, right? Although you start to see like a Roku dabble in original content, but by no means are they gatekeeping or inhibiting like an indie publisher like myself to get onto the platform. Matter of fact, they're working with you to help you for positioning and discovery of the content. So I think like they're the term gatekeeper is probably not, they're an enabler for us. Like they're a partner. They actually enable us to circumvent the gatekeepers, which is the Hollywood studios, to get our content out there and reach audience. That's why I look at it.
Good.
I want to jump in here. Jeff, I'm going to argue it's a little bit different for you because you have Kevin Hart, right? If you have a very famous,
Who's that?
completely different conversation, or if you have a library like AMC does, that's a very different conversation with someone like Greg or Samsung or TCL or anyone else, because they're looking for that attachment. When you are a smaller publisher that addresses, in our case, the only one in FAST and AVOD addressing the LGBTQ audience, which in the United States is the third largest consumer group, spending over $1.7 trillion a year, just below Hispanic. We're held to the same standards as we would AMC or Hartbeat Media, and we don't have the same resources, let's say, that you guys would have, that we do. And here's where I'd argue that there is gatekeeping by OEMs. It's that inventory split and what is equitable between the publisher and between the platform. Because a lot of folks, I'm going to go on a limb and say, again, if you're an AMC or you're a Hartbeat Media, you're getting a more favorable inventory split than we are at Revry, because you have very different media than us. Completely understandable. However, that is gatekeeping, because essentially the way that we monetize is by selling original content, branded content, and that inventory space. So it's 15 and 30-second ads. So we had to get creative at Revry. We came up with a solution. We came up with our own ad exchange, Prism Riot. And Prism Riot, essentially, Vizio is an amazing partner to us. We bought a ton of media. We're able to broker media now because we're minority owned and operated. We're National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce certified on minority business enterprise and disadvantaged business enterprise. So we're speaking to very different buyers, ones that specifically only buy for Black, Hispanic, and LGBTQ media. And we're able to backdoor now the rest of the inventory that we couldn't yield on our own for our owned and operated. And that was just kind of a strategy that we came up with that's been very successful for us. But it's not the studios. Studios are dying. They're a thing of the past, because when we look at the demographics between Gen Z and millennial, let's just face it, like, they're going to watch connected TV and social media. They're not going to subscribe or watch studio stuff like we used to. And I'm going to be 44 in a week. So, I come from a very different generation. But there is still gatekeeping that is happening, because there are platforms that will take 100% of the inventory and not allow the publisher to sell any of it. And that is completely inequitable.
Paige, you're also on the side of distribution, right? What's your experience then? It's probably a little bit different from Jeff and Damian, given your 14 channels.
Well, I was going to piggyback, because I think we also see a different side of it. If I take a step back in terms of like promotion or even shelf space and carriage, there maybe you'll run into scenarios where partners are more concerned with their owned and operated. They have their own stuff going on, their own commitments that they're worried about pushing or promoting rather than some of their other providers. And we've run into that. Or maybe they have limited shelf space because, again, they're going to commit a certain to their own channels that they're going to take and build, or somebody else. That's, again, not us, when we're doing a lot of work to try and create these really exciting events in all aspects for viewers that are appetizing to the platforms as well, in terms of these are really major tentpoles, these are really exciting opportunities, which again, in turn, makes interesting places for advertisers to want to serve into on our stream. So we've seen that side of things as well, which can be a challenge.
Yeah. Greg, would you have a response to that?
Yeah, so I don't see us in any way, shape, or form as gatekeepers. I look at us as strategic collaborators, or we're forming strategic alliances. In fact, when I got here 4.5 years ago, I was very clear to everybody here, and I was hoping that they would agree, and they did. We don't call any of our partners here clients, content providers, vendors. They're all partners. We are partnering together to build something great together for our customer, which is the number one thing for us. So, I think that platforms and partners, content partners here, we have to work together to create the best user experience. And that's across all forms of content, right? With a robust content relationship that we have with Jeff and with Damian and with Paige here, we would, if we did not have that, we would not have the product to inspire engagement of our users. Full stop there, right? We don't produce content like the studios do. We don't produce content like Kevin Hart does, right? At least not at that volume. We have some branded content plays, etc. But what we do have is a plethora of insights and data that help inform what works and how to curate on our own platform, right? And it's up to us to be able to leverage that, to use that, to work with our partners to create the best experience for our users. And with all those dynamic tools and everything that I mentioned earlier, right, to make that experience even better, right? I do not ever believe that we are in this alone. Without you guys, without the content partners, we have nothing to show the user.
Yeah,
If I may,
go ahead.
I was just going to add, not everybody is as keen to share as much information, which I also think is an important piece to note. So it can make it challenging to really super serve that type of content if we don't know what's doing well, especially if you have a single feed that might get shared to multiple endpoints. It can make it really hard to mine through and understand what's working on which platforms if they're not willing to share that back to you. And in my mind, I always like to say that rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Absolutely. And Paige, is that a compliment for us then? Because
I didn't like it.
Vizio is one of the few that does actually. You are one of the biggest OEMs that actually does partner. When I'm calling things out, I'm not calling out Vizio. I just want to go on the record. I'm calling out other partners to remain nameless. But to Paige's point, without data, we don't know how to day part. We don't know how to program. We don't know what is working. We license at Revry from Lionsgate and Warner Brothers and BBC. Should I take that title again for another run? Or not? It's hard. We have a full-time VP of data who tries to translate Chinese to French to Italian. And when I say that, it's figuring out what little data that we're given by the OEMs, because there's no standardization, right? That's another thing that we're waiting for to happen. But of course, none of us on this call are going to be the ones to solve for that. That's going to be something that's going to one day be brought up at the FCC, right? So that is another issue, to Paige's point, is we want to help super serve those audiences, but the OEMs need to be able to give us the right data to be able to do that.
And the unification of data is something that's come up also on the ad side as well, right? Pepsi's ability to do a big ad buy across all platforms. I'm not here to discuss that, but from our perspective at Vizio, as it relates to data and data sharing and insights sharing too, it's not just us saying you had 10 viewers. It is, here's 10 viewers, but you could have had 12 by doing this, right? Or contextually, you had 10, they had 8, they had 20, right? Our ability to say, here's some insights, some things that we see are working. That's paramount for us, and that's how we've approached this from the beginning. Because to Paige's point, rising tides raises all ships, right? We don't monetize if you don't monetize, right? And our goal is not only to do it well, is every time we do it to do it better. So Paige, when I acquire more content from you, right, Jeff, when we come back and we say we want more Kevin, right, I want to be able to say I want this Kevin, not that Kevin, because I know this Kevin would work. And that's what we want to focus on, and that's how we really resign ourselves to deliberate actions, right? And that's what good data does. It avoids, or it reduces the need for spray and pray. That said, we will try things as well. If you come to us and say, "This is great, let's do this," we're happy to be a surprise as well. And I have a case study for that as well. So
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's such a crowded environment, and I'll maybe talk a little bit about that as we get to I think our final question. But what this brings up, you've mentioned data, we've mentioned user experience, and what do you guys see as the potential to use data for profiling, personalization capabilities, make the user experience better? What do you, whether you're currently working on that, or you can foresee ways that you might work on using data to make the user experience better, the personalization better? Chris, I think you talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, and we were just talking about using data to help drive better choices of content, licensing content, what content to present to the user. And that's very important. But it's also, how can we use data to drive better advertising, more efficient advertising, basically get more bang for the buck for the advertiser, and more revenue for, the content producers and the ecosystem. So, I think that comes with a deeper understanding of the audience that you're delivering into, not just the device, but the household, if you will, and allowing at the same time, it's a really win-win problem. If you solve for creating a better experience for people inside the household, and we do that with our Whale TV operating systems by enabling profiles to be set up, and each profile has different content recommendations and different methods of discovery and different, I talked about the masthead and how we present content to viewers. It changes depending on the profile and the history and the data that comes into that. So leveraging that not only for the content decisions, but and with our partners, helping them drive better content decisions, but also helping them better monetize as well. So yeah, very, very important for both those monetization and for user experience.
Jeff, you talked earlier about collaborations with the OEMs. Is this something that are you guys seeing some success there with the user experience being, improved and refined?
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing process, and Greg's on phone. Vizio has been great partner in terms of sharing data and things like that. I mean, some of the platforms not so much. It's been difficult, but the ones that are actually working with us in terms of sharing data, I mean, the way I look at it, and I kind of use this as an example because for us, we treat YouTube like a streaming platform, and they're great in terms of recommendations, personalization. So I think it's an ongoing process, but to the point earlier, each OEM is different. So we're with Vizio, okay, great conversations, things are happening. With other ones, not so much, because everything's so fragmented. So it's still an uphill battle. But in terms of like really reaching consumers and audience, personalization is going to be key, and recommendations. I mean, that's so key in terms of building an audience around either around a brand or around a piece of IP.
And can I just add to that as well? Because a lot of people love to talk about data, right? But there's too many people generally, who talk about it but don't use it, right? We have a lot of it. We do use it. We form insights out of it, right? But that's not to say that data has got to tell us everything, right? You have better data when you have more instances of data, right? When you have more data, right? You can make better insights. So we've been very, very focused on as well, going out, let's try something too. And the case study that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to mention some folks that are not on the call. Blue Ant is a partner of ours, and we have a channel here called Love Nature. We promoted it, we pushed it, and it's done very, very, very well for us. There's no data in the world that we had at that time that would have said this would have done as well as it did, right? And that's where, when I work with the content partners and we say, our insights don't show this. This is what we're thinking. And they say, this is going to work. We got to try this. Here's this. Here's an audience. We know it's there. Or this, they might even say it worked on Tubi, right? A lot of times we're willing to try that because it'll only service more data on our side, more understanding, more insight, right? So I implore the industry to take the approach that working with our content partners, figuring this out together, generating more insights together is really key to how we proliferate and ultimately get bigger engagement for longer periods of time. And at the end of the day, we have to do that. We're selling ads. I don't work in a subscription business. I work in the ad business. So I need people to watch today, tomorrow, and all the time to make money on that. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do, is build habits here.
Damian, is he nodding?
Yeah. I completely agree with Greg on this. What I think is really interesting though, and something that, like, from a publisher standpoint, we are now thinking through, is that data becomes our currency for the future, right? And I dropped in the chat our fight right now with the Trade Desk, going back to talking about gatekeeping. Trade Desk is a piece of ad tech for folks watching this or aren't familiar. They basically have a monopoly with a lot of the bigger brands that essentially use their operating system to monetize and make sure that there's not duplication or brokering of different ad campaigns. However, in our case, the data that we acquire, both from social and owned and operated and our fast channels and our AVOD platforms, is around a protected class of people, LGBTQ folks, for the mass majority, is our assumption of our over 10 million monthly active viewers. And we don't want to give that data away. And we also want to receive the data from our partners, because this is something that we don't want to fall into the wrong hands. Trade Desk, and our argument with Trade Desk that now we are going very public on, is that they want us to just give that data away through their open path product without the ability for us to truly monetize that. And then the ironic twist is we've had big, major Fortune 500 brands that want to buy from us, but Trade Desk refuses to open up our programmatic offering through Prism Riot to be able to resell that first-party data and make $1 on that, which is truly fair for us to do. But they want to be able to do it all themselves. This is a problem. Ad tech and discrimination in ad tech is going to be something that we face for folks who are minority owned and operated publishers. And the data needs to be protected, especially when you're addressing a minority audience, be it Black, Hispanic, LGBTQ, AAPI, or so on. And this is something that we are going to fight the good fight. And we know that there are other folks who are in this exact same fight right now with us with Trade Desk. And I implore you to look at that Ad Age article where we announced completely a rejection of our partnership with Trade Desk and removed all of our inventory completely.
Yeah, that's, you had shared that article with me last week, and yeah, it is a really important issue, which kind of brings up another thing that I think you and I discussed is, these days, obviously the initials DEI are triggering to many people, and the political environment has obviously changed a lot just in the last couple of months. And I look at our screen here and I see we've got a pretty diverse group of folks here with diverse audiences for your offerings. What do you guys see as, is this going to be a challenge going forward, or is this kind of going to be able to be separate from the political environment? Jeff, you're smiling.
Again, I have to jump in. I'm gonna quote Jane Fonda from the SAG Awards. Woke just means you give a damn about people. Woke just means you give a damn about people, period. DE&I is not a bad thing. We obviously, in the political climate that we're in right now, it's being politicized. And this is, an issue. The ironic twist of this is now Revry is more relevant because we are here to stand up and tell stories for a minority group that is essentially being attacked at all costs across, this nation that we live in. There are brands, and I can't say who, and there's CMOs that I'm friends with from big Fortune 500 brands that I've had conversations in the last couple of months around specifically this topic. There's one major brand that we work with that is one of the greatest partners and advertisers. And the CMO of this brand called me almost immediately after the new year to say, I want to let you know, we're not changing our spend or our commitment to working with you. If anything, we're going to double down. And the only reason you may see our name in a headline saying that we're regressing from DE&I practices is for legal exposure that this government could impose on them. So this is a whole different thing. All these brands that we see in the headlines that are regressing from their ERGs and whatnot, they're not necessarily giving up on those communities, but what they're doing is making sure that they're protected against their legal exposure or whatever the fuck this orange Cheeto can do to us. Excuse my French. Now, what's interesting is I'll implore, World Pride is like the Olympics of Pride. It happens in a different host city every 2 years. It is happening in June in Washington, D.C. Revry will be there. We're going to be marching in the parade. We have a big event, our big Vogue Ballroom showcase on June 5th. And it's only the second time in the United States. First time was 5 years ago during Stonewall's anniversary, the 50th anniversary of the movement in 2019 in New York City. This advertiser, and I'm sure you'll figure it out if you go to the website, they're a platinum sponsor of Pride. So even though you may see the article that they're regressing from their ERGs or DE&I, they're still putting money into our community, and I will publicly stand by them as much as I'm legally allowed to.
Great. Jeff, I saw you smiling when we brought this topic up. Do you must have some thoughts on this one?
I mean, to be honest, that's a whole different panel. Just I could go on for 30 minutes, but it's an issue. But I think that's a whole separate conversation.
Okay, that's a really fair point. We really could talk about this for like an hour. But one of the things that we did talk about, and this, I think it's been unspoken so far, and I think certainly Jeff, Damian, Paige, you guys in particular might be feeling this. This is a super crowded environment. I had seen a report just a couple months ago. There are right now roughly 2,000 FAST channels available. And given the way they're distributed, that means that there are 5,000 different places that a viewer can go and find a FAST channel. So in that crowded environment, there are going to be big winners, and there are probably going to be some who may not make it through the next several years. So do you all think that the ecosystem as it exists now is going to allow for a multitude of fasts and other providers to thrive? Or are we going to see, the rich getting richer, if we're talking about a Pluto TV or a Tubi or any of these with a huge major media company behind them? Or do you see that this can be a place where hundreds and even thousands of offerings can flourish? Paige, you look like you're giving that some serious thought. So what are you thinking on that topic?
Well, I have lots of thoughts because I'd like to think, for us, having that distribution is so important and meaningful to really be in such a wide variety of places in as many, countries as we can be, because having that exposure is great. And to that point, we have so much deep in our catalog. Maybe you've never heard of John Woo, or you've never heard of old school Richard Pryor, where, we can have that exposure and go everywhere. But, on the flip side, I have seen consolidation. That's a very real thing where we're not going to have several binge channels. We're going to condense them into one place. And I think it really depends. I think it's hard to answer, because I just think it depends on who you're talking to and what their plan is. Again, what kind of data are they sharing, that on this platform, maybe classic TV works the best, and, cult films aren't doing as well. So it's kind of a loaded question.
Oh, I love to ask loaded questions. That makes the panel more fun, doesn't it?
We need a separate panel to talk about that. No.
Yeah. Well, Chris,
I
you've
think
got
just to
perspective.
chime in here, it's kind of like this is part of the kind of arts, and of course there's science and and data and so forth of it's a two-pronged problem. It's helping the content producers that are making great shows, great programs, reach the audience of who it's intended for, and it's also the operating system, the connected TV OM, basically, that is also trying to do the most engagement on their platforms and help their viewers find that content, right? And I think this is where we really think about the UI and the experience and really helping make that connection, working with content providers to reach those right audiences. That I think becomes part of the art and science here. And I think kind of touching on maybe a little bit on the diversity theme here is, this is another great thing about connected TVs, is the ability to bring in all sorts of, not just the mainstream hits, but niche content for different communities. We're committed to having a boatload of free content. We have a 100% free TV section on our operating systems, and thousands of hours of live TV from applications and content providers, and and as I said, kind of profiles that we could personalize the content as we present it to them. But we serve over 200 countries. We're mostly international with Whale TV, or 200 countries. There are a lot of audiences there that are waiting to find and discover their next hit. And I think that's kind of part of our job, is working with content providers, especially, US content providers that want to go internationally, and help them find their audiences there.
Great. Yeah. I mean, 200 countries. Say, I was thinking 2,000 fasts in the US. So how many fasts are there worldwide? Do you have a guess, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know. I know we have fast, and obviously a lot of content providers bringing their own applications onto our environment. That's the other thing, is help not only just discover content through fast, but discover and drive content engagement through the content provider's own application. So it's solving both those problems.
Greg, do you have a perspective on that that's a little different?
Yeah.
About, what's this competitive environment look like in a couple of years?
So we've talked a lot about super serving the audience, right? And obviously at Vizio, we have a very broad audience, like a lot of the platforms do. We sell our TVs in a bunch of stores across the country, right? At all income levels, demos, etc. So we're most interested in serving that broad audience with whatever they want to watch. That said, there is a finite amount of space here to do that, right? If you turn on your TV, I can't show you 20,000 assets, right? I can show you 8 on my hero banner. I could show you 5 in the discover row before you scroll over, right? So that competition for real estate is really it's really critical to how we think about winners and losers, right? And the ability to get in those spaces, right? Really, it piggybacks on the ability to find that audience, right? To find what our audience wants to watch, and if they do, we're going to super serve it to them, right? There's no disadvantage there. Again, we're in service of serving our audience, right? And in turn, making money off of that audience. And as a platform, like, again, we can enable a content provider to reach an audience, and it might be an audience that they weren't able to get before in other ways. Try getting on a cable package in 1997. Like, that was very, very hard. I think we have a lot more endpoints here and a lot more opportunities than there were in old TV days. When it was a bit more, it was a lot more finite than what we have now. So and we've seen where others have been able to build a business around curating content on our platform, and what resonates will get surfaced up, right? And we've also built a number of areas where we can find that audience and curate that audience, curate that content as well. If you have a library and you have 20 really good hours, right? And you're still building your library, right? But you have 20 great hours. That might not be enough for a fast channel, but maybe it could work in one of our fast channels, right? That's another endpoint, right? Maybe we can look at it from a VOD sense and create a collection and support that and push that. We have a series here. It's got 4 or 5 episodes. It kills it. And we keep running it. We keep putting it. It has made so much money, right? And we're not going to hold that back. It's only 5 episodes, right? Again, our ability to aid and help a content partner find that audience is critical to us, right? And any way that we can do that, we're going to do that. As content partners grow, Tubi, Pluto, Max, Netflix, there was a time where Netflix sold DVDs and they had nothing in the digital space, right? As those companies grow, as any company grows, right, it finds more opportunities, more robust opportunities to expand their business and expand their product lines, right? You've seen it with Shout, you've seen it with Tubi, etc., right? That's just natural economics. But again, we don't affect that. We don't affect the content that comes to our platform. We can only affect how we display and curate that content to the user.
Yeah, I mean, it is just. It went in the last, 10, maybe only 10 years to, there was limited shelf space on a cable or satellite or telco platform. And now it's roughly infinite, the number of
However,
offerings
right.
out there.
Right. But you're right, Mark. And we can host thousands and thousands of assets at one time easily, but it's not enough to have them there. It's also about being able to pluck out a series and put it in front of that user that we know loves it, right? And that real estate on our home screen, that real estate in our service where we're curating a carousel, right? That is really, really critical. And I tell all of our partners, and I tell all the partners that are listening today too, help us there. You know your content better than us. Bring it to us. Let's work together to find those executions, right?
This is why we work so hard on those unique programming events, things like that for Carol Burnett, especially when it comes to carriage. You should take this channel because we're getting her on camera. We're recording new material. We have new things bookending our marathons, this, that, the other thing. This is why we really take advantage of those unique opportunities to really stand out and say there's something really meaningful part of this channel. This is why it's a great fit for your OEM, CT, whatever the scenario is.
Yeah. Well, we're now down to the last 10 minutes of our program, and we do have some questions in the chat. So I'd like to address them in the order they came in. This is an interesting one to me because I would love to hear your thoughts on, is there a trend toward video ads? I mean, we talked about, the carousels and the banners and the, generally kind of home screen static stuff, but what about the trend toward video ads or interactive ads on your platforms? Chris, you're as the OS expert. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I think there's more flexibility. We have, I mean, again, certainly video ads, but more flexibility with newer formats. I talked about the masthead on the GUI and some of the GUI placements. But also in stream with, squeeze back ads or picture in picture, a lot of new formats there. I think the challenge that we have as an industry is really making them educating, see what works, finding out what works for advertisers and educating people about these opportunities. Some of them are so new that really to get some scale behind it, it's going to take a while and more education.
Anybody else have any thoughts on these new ad formats? Damian, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I think, shoppable, dynamic, different types of overlay. The problem as a publisher who sells their inventory, at least, we make our money off of selling to advertisers, is we're not allowed to do that in all of the environments, or the technology doesn't allow for it yet, right? We're waiting for the technology to catch up to the opportunity. We did have one successful campaign last year where we used QR codes mainly to power our Nielsen study around our audiences across all of our platforms, which ended up having almost 20,000 uses in less than a month, which for us was a big deal that they filled out. We had 20,000, 2-page surveys from Nielsen being filled out, which told us a lot about who our audience is. And we released those insights at Cannes Lion. We're going to do it again this year. So, our biggest thing is we're sanctioned by the technology. That's our big hurdle right now.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else have some ideas or experience on that one? Different ad formats, shoppable, interactive.
The only thing is interesting on our end that we've actually tried for in-house stuff that we might promote, but I don't know if anybody else might have run into this challenge where if you're sharing a similar feed, but not every platform enjoys certain types of messaging. Maybe they don't want QR codes, URLs, or things that take you outside of that endemic environment. So that can be a blocker. And it's been something, we try to maybe creatively get around. On the flip side, when you're talking about L bands and squeeze backs, I also wonder if anybody's run into the issue where maybe not everything you have the right to do that against, if that makes sense. Certain types of content maybe don't want to be paired, or if they don't know what that advertisement will be. Let's say it's kids content. We don't want it to get paired with a beer or something. Maybe for MST, Beer on the Sun. But, those are very real scenarios that, we haven't quite figured out how to navigate or still working through.
Yeah. I've got another question here, which I don't think I've been to a conference in the last year or so where we haven't seen these two letters. So we'll see them here again. How do you guys think about how AI might evolve or disrupt the tvOS business model? For instance, your content promos on the home screen. Do we see AI, machine learning enhancing this?
So one thing I want to say about AI is there are two letters that have been used quite a lot over the last year and a half, 2 years. And I think a lot of the discussion around AI, it's not actual AI, it's machine learning that we've had, for years and years now. It's typical data science. But as we get into more robust and more complex models, the ability to do this sounds wonderful, right? If we can be more efficient, if we can be more real time, right, with these tools, I think that it could be interesting. But if we were to go into the space, it would require us to have partners that were willing to do that as well, right? And I think the issue with AI, if you unleash it, there's a lack of control there, right? When you work with a Sony, they have their creative assets for promo, and that's it, right? That's what you're going to use, right? We're not dynamically creating things for Sony, and that's where I think as it evolves, and as I think a lot of companies get more and more comfortable with the lack of hands-on control, you might see a lot more of this.
Just to piggyback off of Greg, like from a publisher standpoint, where we're using AI is on our audience segmentation and analyzation of our data. We're not using it for creative, because AI for creative is just terrible, right? It's like clip art. We're at the days of clip art right now. With AI, it's not going to necessarily, or what was that was on the screen at the Pentagon recently? Elon Musk sucking, or no, Trump in the toes of Elon Musk. That's the only thing it's really good for. But as it relates to data and segmentation and analyzing that data, we're finding a lot of great use cases for that.
I'll say on that, the way we're using as a publisher, like I'm deep into the AI, big advocate. But what we've done, I've kind of got my team to understand this, is that as we approach brands versus going in with a deck, I'm actually producing a trailer. Say, hey, this is what this campaign can look like. So I'm using for sales tools and the brands are really buying into it because they can actually visualize what we're pitching to them.
Yeah, that's a
Now-
good way. I'd echo, kind of what Damian said. There is, using it for creatives probably far away, and and brands don't want you really touching their creative. But using on back end operational kind of things is, to streamline that makes sense. Through data, the other place we use it is on our recommendations for surfacing content to folks, and through voice activated search. So we're using some AI in the background to help people discover content better.
That sounds like one of the biggest issues that viewers have these days is content discovery. So anything that can help there. We've got a couple of minutes left, so let's just do one more question here from, this is a good one. We probably need way more than 2 minutes, but what is the importance to you all of consistent identity for measurement? So do you see any impediments in the measurement space to standardization across these platforms, OEMs and apps? Anybody want to field that one for the next couple minutes?
It's
I
super.
think Damian talked about accessibility to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of did hit on that through several of these topics. That is going to be a big challenge going forward, is standardization, data sharing. We've heard from all of you, I think, that Vizio is a good partner in that respect.
And
But
Whale.
it
And
is.
Whale. Whale's a great
Oh,
partner.
okay.
Yeah, I think the other complication is, obviously we'll want to help the publishers who are selling ads through our platform, use whatever currency, use whatever measurement they can, right? So we'll place the tags, the whatever data they want, so that they can most effectively sell. We think, hey, if they're most effectively, we're very flexible on business models. We're a little bit smaller, a little bit maybe more nimble to be able to do this. So look, if Damian could sell all the inventory for audiences in some of my countries, I'm going to give him, all the inventory to sell, and hopefully he sells it better and cuts me in on that deal.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have a sales team over in, maybe South Africa or Brazil, then, maybe I'll sell for him and cut him. So we'll figure out what works on that. But part of that is, okay, what's the currency? What's the measurement that's needed on that? So I have this extra complication of there's, it's not just kind of Nielsen and US, but, kind of like what's the, UK measurement, is BARB involved, and like Numeris in Canada, like 200 of those for different countries, right? And so, yeah, but again, I think we're moving to, it's not, moving to more of an impression-based, actual data-based, measurements and return path data, and then again figuring out who's best selling the inventory and what measurement they need. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's great. It looks like we are at time, and I just want to thank the panel. It's wonderful discussion. We had a great time in the pre-session as well. If you all could have heard that discussion, was even more fun. But thank you all so much for your insights, for sharing, for being so honest, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
Steve?
thank you all so
Thanks, Jeff.
much.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
this is great for me. I get to put together exactly the panel I want to see, and then I just kick back and watch it. It's awesome. But yeah, thank you all. Before we go, just want to announce our Amazon gift card winner. It was Zeal Sheath, who correctly identified "Come Rain or Come Shine" by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. Join us back here in half an hour for Fast Forward: How Fast Platform and Infrastructure Providers Can Better Serve the Market.